In the quiet of the night, just after the rain had fallen and the world smelled of damp earth and clean stone, a small fox named Pip poked his head out of his burrow beneath the old oak tree. The rain had stopped. The clouds were parting, and through them the moon cast a silver glow that made every droplet on every leaf shine like a tiny, delicate lantern. Pip blinked. His whiskers twitched. He sniffed the air. If you have ever stood at a window after a storm, watching the world drip and gleam, and felt your chest fill with a strange, quiet hope, you know how the fox felt. The rain had washed everything clean. The air tasted fresh and cool. And Pip knew, with the certainty that came not from thought, but from somewhere deeper, that this was a night for baking. But here was the gentle problem. Pip had never baked a carrot cake by himself before. Oh, he had watched his grandmother, the old vixen who lived 3 burrows over, whisk and fold and pour with the easy rhythm of paws that had done it 1,000 times. He had seen the way she would sprinkle cinnamon from a tiny clay jar, letting it fall like rust-colored snow. He had felt the warmth of her little oven, made from a hollowed stone and fired with dry twigs. But his own paws had never shaped the dough. His own nose had never learned to read the scent of rising batter. So when Pip decided, that very rainy night, that he would bake a carrot cake all alone, his heart beat a little faster. He gathered his ingredients with care. 3 carrots, small and sweet. 2 cups of flour, sifted through a leaf. A pinch of salt. A generous heap of cinnamon. And for sweetness, a spoonful of honey from the hollow log where the bees slept in winter. Can you picture it? The small fox, barely tall enough to reach the stone counter, standing on his hind legs, his ears pricked forward, his tail swishing with concentration. The burrow was dim. The only light came from the dying embers of the fire and the pale blue glow of the moon, filtering through the root-woven ceiling. Shadows moved slowly. The whisk, when it touched the clay bowl, made a soft, rhythmic sound. But something was wrong. Pip mixed the flour and the cinnamon. He grated the carrots into fine orange threads. He cracked a tiny egg, no bigger than a walnut, into the bowl. And then he added the honey, warm and amber, dripping from the spoon in a slow, golden curl. He stirred. He folded. He poured. But the dough did not look right. It was too sticky. It clung to his paws in thick, wet clumps. When he tried to shape it into a round, it slumped and spread. A soft puddle on the stone. Pip frowned. He added more flour. A whole handful. Then another. The dough became stiff. It cracked at the edges. He added a drop of water. Too much. It was a puddle again. His whiskers drooped. His shoulders sagged. The night, which had felt so full of promise, now felt heavy. And here's the secret the rain knew, but the fox had not yet learned. That secret is worth holding close for a moment, like a warm stone in your palm. If you want more nights like this, where quiet revelations unfold in the dark, subscribe so that each new story finds its way to you. And in the comments, tell us what you think the rain knows that the day forgets. We would love to hear what the world has whispered to you after a storm. pre-industrial Japanese baking manuals, written on scrolls of mulberry paper by monks who baked bread in the darkness of mountain temples, record a curious truth. Dough rises differently when the air is wet. The moisture from rain changes the way yeast and grain speak to each other. The dough becomes more alive, more sensitive, more willing to transform. But to a baker who trusts only the recipe, a wet night feels like failure. A 2019 study published in the journal Chemical Senses found something else. Sweetness perception increases in low-light conditions. When the eyes cannot see the color of the food, the tongue becomes more receptive to sugar. The carrots Pip had grated would taste sweeter in the dark than they ever would in the sun. But Pip did not know this. He only knew that the dough felt wrong. So he tried again. He scraped the sticky mess aside and began a second batch. This time he measured with more care. 1 cup of flour. He tapped the cup gently on the stone to settle it. 1/2 cup of grated carrot. A whisper of salt. He beat the egg in a separate bowl, watching the yolk swirl into the white like a tiny golden galaxy. He added the honey last, drizzling it in a thin stream while he stirred. But he was nervous. His paws trembled. He added a little more flour just to be safe. Then a little more. The dough stiffened. He added a splash of milk, but his paw jerked and too much went in. The dough became soup. He sighed, a long, soft sound that echoed in the quiet burrow. And then, something unexpected happened. A crumb from the first batch, the sticky one he had pushed aside, fell from the edge of the stone and landed on the floor. It was a tiny thing, no bigger than a pine needle. Pip barely noticed it. But the crumb lay there, in the shadow near the hearth, absorbing the warmth from the cooling embers. The moisture from the rain-damp air settled on it. The honey in the crumb began to bubble, ever so slowly. Let us pause here for just a moment. Can you feel the quiet of the burrow? The soft red glow of the coals, the scent of cinnamon and carrot and wet earth, mingling in the warm air. The fox tired now, his ears flat, his tail curled around his paws. He had tried so hard. And yet, the cake would not behave. Have you ever tried so hard to get something right that you made it harder? You added more, then less, then more again. And the thing you were making seemed to slip further and further away. That was Pip. His whiskers trembled. His paws felt clumsy. He wanted to be like his grandmother, who could bake a cake with her eyes closed. But his eyes were open, and all they saw was a sticky, shapeless mess. But here is the beautiful part. The night was helping him, even though he could not see it. The rain had changed the air. The darkness had sharpened his senses, even if his mind did not understand the signals. And that tiny crumb, the one that had fallen and seemed forgotten, was doing something remarkable. It was waking up. Ghibli's animators, when they created the kitchen scenes for Spirited Away and Arrietty, spent months studying how light and shadow move in small, enclosed spaces. They watched how dust motes drift in a beam of afternoon sun, how steam curls from a kettle, how the glow of embers can make a simple wooden table feel like a secret altar. The animators learned that the most ordinary spaces, when viewed in the right light, become magical. That same moon was now shining through the roots of Pip's burrow, casting a soft, silver-blue light that made the dust in the air glow like tiny stars. And in that light, the crumb on the floor began to swell. It grew round and soft. It released a scent so warm, so sweet, so full of honey and spice, that Pip lifted his head and sniffed. This is the moment when the night begins to teach. If you want to stay with Pip through every scent and every step, subscribe so you can follow these journeys from the first raindrop to the final crumb. And in the comments, share a time when a mistake turned into something wonderful. We would love to read your stories. He followed the smell. He found the crumb, now the size of a small pebble, sitting on the stone floor. It looked nothing like a cake. It was misshapen and uneven, glistening with a dark, caramelized sheen. But when Pip touched it with his paw, it was warm. It yielded slightly under his pad, soft and gentle. He brought it closer to his nose. The scent was deep and rich, like the heart of a carrot cake, but softer, more mysterious, like the memory of a cake rather than the cake itself. He placed it carefully on the stone counter. Then, without quite knowing why, he added a tiny pinch of flour, then a drop of honey. Then he pressed it gently with his paw, shaping it into a small, round disc. The dough did not fight him. It surrendered. It felt right. This was the night's magic. The rain had made the air heavy with moisture. The darkness had made the honey sing. The crumb, which had seemed like a mistake, had become a seed, and the seed was ready to grow. Pip built a small fire in the stone oven. He fed it dry twigs and leaves, watching the flames catch and settle into a bed of glowing coals. He slid the small disk of dough onto a flat stone and placed it near the heat, but not too close. Then he sat back and waited. The burrow was quiet. The fire whispered. The moon climbed higher. Pip's eyelids grew heavy. He was so tired. His paws ached. But the scent that began to fill the burrow was unlike anything he had smelled before. The carrot had softened. The honey had caramelized. The cinnamon had bloomed, warm and spicy like a hug from the inside. And here's the thing the rain knows. The thing the night knows. The best carrot cakes are not made from perfect recipes. They are made from the moment when a baker stops trying to control everything and lets the night have its turn. The rain adds moisture that cannot be measured. The darkness adds sweetness that cannot be added. The gentle failure of a sticky dough becomes the secret ingredient that no list of ingredients could ever describe. The cake was ready. Pip took it from the oven using a folded leaf to protect his paw. It was small, no bigger than his paw. It was lopsided, slightly darker on one edge. The top was cracked in two places, and the glaze of honey had pooled unevenly, leaving a sticky golden puddle on the stone. It was, by any measure, an imperfect cake. But the smell, it filled the burrow like a blanket. It wrapped around Pip's shoulders. He broke off a tiny piece. It crumbled in his paw, soft and warm. He placed it on his tongue, and the night spoke. The sweetness was deep and calm. The carrot was earthy and tender. The cinnamon glowed like a quiet ember, and there was something else. A taste that Pip could not name. It tasted like the rain, like the moon, like the moment a mistake becomes a secret. That is the taste of trust. And so the fox, who had tried so hard to bake a perfect cake in the dark, learned that the dark was not his enemy. It was his partner. The rain was not an obstacle. It was an ingredient. And the crumb that fell on the floor was not a failure. It was the beginning. Let us sit here for a moment, in the warmth of the burrow. The fire has burned low. The cake sits cooling on the stone, its scent still drifting through the quiet air. Pip is curled near the oven, his nose tucked under his tail. He's not thinking about the cake anymore. He's not thinking about the recipe or the mess or the sticky dough. He is simply being in the warmth and the dark and the gentle hum of the night. As we share this quiet moment, I want to invite you to stay close. If you would like more nights like this, more burrows and moonlit kitchens, subscribe so that these stories can become part of your evening. And in the comments, tell Pip what you think he will remember most about this night. The taste of the cake or the feel of the dough that finally let go. And that is the secret. The night knows what the day forgets. In the day, we see every mistake. We see the cracks and the spills and the lopsided edges. We compare our cakes to the pictures in books. We measure our success by the smoothness of the glaze. But in the night, when the light is soft and the air is damp and the world is quiet, the mistakes become something else. They become the places where the magic enters. What remains is the closing. Pip let out a long, slow breath. The warmth from the oven brushed against his fur. The scent of the small, imperfect cake still drifted in the air. But it was fading now, settling into the wood, and the stone, and the soft earth beneath. The moon, which had shone so brightly through the roots, had shifted. The burrow was darker, sleepier, and the fox, who had tried so hard, closed his eyes. He did not clean the sticky counter. He did not scrape the leftover dough from his paws. He did not worry about the crumb that had fallen, the one that had shown him the way. All of that could wait. What mattered now was the quiet, the warmth, the feeling that he had done something. Not perfectly, but truly. In the morning, when the sun rose and the rain-washed world grew bright, Pip would wake. He would see the lopsided cake on the stone. He would remember the sticky dough and the trembling paws. But he would also remember the crumb that had transformed. He would taste in the leftover crumbles the sweetness that only the dark could give. But that was for later. For now, there was only this moment. The fire crackled once, a soft, settling sound. The last ember glowed, and Pip, the little fox who baked a carrot cake in the dark, fell asleep with the scent of cinnamon still clinging to his whiskers. That is the secret the fox found. Not a recipe, a feeling. The night knows what the day forgets. Now close your eyes. Let the quiet hold you. The barrow settled into a deep, velvety silence. The fire's last pulse of warmth faded. Outside, the first stars began to appear between the moving clouds. And Pip dreamed. He dreamed of rain falling on carrot tops, of honey dripping from a silver spoon, of 1,000 tiny crumbs, each one glowing with a soft golden light. In the dream, he was not alone. His grandmother sat beside him, her old paws wrapped around a clay cup. She did not speak, she simply nodded, her eyes warm and knowing. Pip's tail twitched in his sleep. The crumb that had saved his cake was now just a small, dark spot on the stone floor. But it had done its work. It had whispered a secret in a language that had no words. The secret was this: that sometimes the smallest failures carry the greatest wisdom. That a sticky dough is not a disaster, but a door. That a trembling paw is not a weakness, but a sign that you care enough to try. When the first grey light of dawn touched the roots above his head, Pip stirred. He opened his eyes. The burrow was cool. The stone oven was dark. And the small cake sat exactly where he had left it, waiting. He looked at it for a long time. He looked at the cracks, the uneven glaze, the lopsided shape. And he smiled. He broke off a piece. He chewed slowly. The sweetness was still there, quiet and deep, like a memory of the night. And in that sweetness, he tasted something else. A lesson. A gift. A feeling that no recipe book could ever contain. It was the taste of trusting himself, even when the world felt dark and the dough felt wrong. So if you ever find yourself in a kitchen, late at night, with sticky fingers and a wobbly heart, remember Pip. Remember the crumb. Remember that the night is not a test you must pass. It is a kitchen you are invited to share. And the cake you bake, however lopsided, will be exactly the cake you needed. That is the secret the fox found. Not a recipe, a feeling. The night knows what the day forgets. Now close your eyes. Let the quiet hold you. And so, the little fox curled deeper into his nest of dry leaves and soft moss. The scent of the cake, now cool and quiet, wrapped around him like a second blanket. He did not need to check if the glaze had set. He did not need to taste another crumb. The night had given him everything it could. And Pip, for the first time in a long while, felt full. Not full of cake, full of warmth, full of the quiet knowing that he had done something brave. He had baked in the dark, with trembling paws and a heart full of doubt. And he had not given up. He had trusted the sticky dough. He had followed the fallen crumb. He had let the night teach him. The burrow grew cooler as the dawn crept closer. The roots above glowed faintly pink. A bird chirped once, then fell silent. The world was waking, but Pip was not ready to wake with it. Not yet. He tucked his nose deeper into his tail and let his breath slow. In his dream there was no recipe. There was only a warm stone, a bowl of golden honey, and the sound of rain falling on the roof of the world. His grandmother sat beside him, her paw resting gently on his. She did not say a word. She did not need to. Pip smiled in his sleep, and the night, for all its mystery and secrecy, smiled back.